Well, welcome everybody. We'll start in a couple minutes. Thanks so much for being here. Oh, Sarah, you are on mute, just to let you know.
Seconded, Biddy.
All right, 6:05. I think we can get started, everybody. So thank you so much all for being here today. We're really excited to have you and talk about Sarah's reelection campaign. The reason why we decided to do this event virtually is because of the rise in threats and some tweets, as well as other information or as other messages that Sarah had received over the course of the campaign and over her course of being state's attorney. So a lot of what motivated this was this video that we put together of some of the quotes and tweets and messages that Sarah has gotten. So I'm going to go ahead and play that. Give me just a second. Let me transition.
One from Office of the Chittenden County State's Attorney. Hey, Sarah. This is your old friend, and I'm just calling to just give you a little piece of advice. When you turn people against the police and do the kinds of things and make the horrible decisions that you're making, karma tends to turn around and bite you in the ass. So I hope you're safe, and I hope none of these illegals or protesters end up stomping on your face in the street, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened to you simply because the stupid decisions you're making. Be careful, Sarah. Bye-bye now. Received.
An Instagram message. Thank God for Second Amendment. Small community. Campaign season. See you around. Instagram comment. Let's find this and give her a taste of her own justice. LOL. She likes to rape us with her resistance. Let's rape her and watch her resist. Twitter. I hope Sarah George gets directly impacted by the same criminals she stands up for. Time to post her address so her constituents can find her easier. I have been a prosecutor for over 15 years. I've handled cases involving threats my whole career. I have endured threats and even stalking from people that I have prosecuted. What I didn't expect was to be the target of threats, hate, vitriol from people who believe things about me that are not true, or who wish to silence the aspects of my work that challenge the status quo. But it happens, and it especially happens when candidates run on fear. When prosecutors get turned into villains for doing their job or use their discretion in a way that doesn't align with the historical narrative. What used to be policy disagreements turn dangerous. So campaigning looks different this cycle. I can't be everywhere I'd like to be. I can't knock on as many doors as I want to. But I refuse to let intimidation set the agenda. We're going to use this campaign to bring people together, not push them apart, to lift up what Vermont actually stands for: a justice system that's fair, that's smart, and that's free from fear. Here's how you can help. Sign up for a lawn sign, sign up to phone bank, sign up to knock doors for us. And on June 30th, join me, Senator Tanya Vyhovsky, Senator Kesha Hinsdale, and Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner for a virtual fundraiser. This is still Vermont. Help me keep it fair, smart, and fearless.
So,
Fantastic. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Tanya, go ahead. Thank you.
no, go ahead. I wasn't sure if I should jump in now, but I
I was
think
just going to
so.
introduce you.
Oh, go for it. I'll let you do that.
I just wanted to introduce Senator Tanya Vyhovsky from Chittenden County, Essex, and really excited to have her here today, going to be hosting this section of the panel. Thank you so much, Tanya. I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good evening, and thank you all for being here. I'm Tanya Vyhovsky. I represent the Chittenden Central District, which is part of Chittenden County, and I'm really proud to be here supporting Sarah and being your host for this evening's conversation. We have a really strong program and a really short window to do it, so I'm just going to jump right in. You are going to be in a webinar format, so your mics and cameras are off. That's intentional. Use the Q&A in the chat to say hello, tell us where you're joining us from. The donation link will be in the chat. Give early, give whatever level you can, and don't wait for the end. Every dollar tonight is going to go directly to getting Sarah reelected, and that's going to be a lot of work between now and August 11th. The closed captions are available in your control. So we are, as Sarah said, on a screen and not in a room together because Sarah, like many of us in politics, particularly women in politics who have bold visions, has faced threats serious enough to change how the campaign is gathering. We have decided that rather than shrinking this effort and shrinking Sarah's vision, we're going to focus it. Tonight, you're going to hear from a few of us who can speak to what Sarah's work has meant here in Vermont and to what it means nationally. And then you will hear from Sarah. I serve on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, and I know Sarah George to be someone that I can go to when I need facts, when I need information, and information that is grounded not in a political narrative, but in justice and in fairness. She prosecutes on evidence and not just what plays well in a press release or is going to be swept up by the media. Sarah holds the violent people and dangerous people accountable, but doesn't believe in the failed practice of warehousing people through tough on crime policy that doesn't address their treatment needs, that doesn't address their mental health needs, and doesn't address the social factors that lead people to being involved with the criminal justice system, because that's actually what keeps our communities safer. We as a nation incarcerate the most people per capita really in the world, and yet we are in the bottom third for safety on the Global Peace Index. If incarcerating more people was going to keep us safer, we'd be the safest country in the world. And Sarah knows that that's not true and thus doesn't follow that failed approach. The approach she uses has a track record. It clears cases, it serves victims, and it spends public money where it does the most good, which is not always in incarcerating people. It is smart prosecution, not soft prosecution. These are the choices that Sarah makes every day. And Sarah is brave and continues to keep making choices that are grounded in data, facts, justice, and compassion. We need to keep a prosecutor in office who works from evidence. We don't want to trade that for a campaign that is running on fear and that is telling you that the system has to be harsher to be safer because the data does not back that up, and neither does our experience in this county. When a prosecutor is threatened for doing their job well, the response cannot be to back away, and Sarah doesn't. It has to be to show up. And that is really what tonight is all about. I am really happy to hand off my speaking to Senator Hinsdale because this doesn't happen in one Senate district alone. It doesn't happen in one county alone. It's going to take a coalition across the state. And I am really excited to hand it over to our Senate Majority Leader, Kesha Hinsdale, to add her thoughts and remarks.
Thank you, Senator Vyhovsky. And it was really wonderful, just to listen to everything you've said about Sarah's courageous career, but particularly ending on the idea that Sarah doesn't back away from a challenge. And that is what inspires me every difficult election, difficult moment Sarah faces, to make sure she doesn't face those challenges alone. I will be donating, and I know that Senator Vyhovsky is going to help make the harder ask for resources. But it's also a really difficult ask right now in this political climate, to just get people to show up and to care and to recognize that there's something they can do at the local level in this moment, that relates so deeply to the national politics that we're experiencing and facing. I think that's certainly evidenced by the presence of Larry Krasner, who I am so excited to hear from while I feed my children lasagna in the background. I have a 1 and 3 year old. My husband works every day in Burlington. I'll say the B word, this larger than life, conversation about our Queen City has seemed to be all consuming and something that lands so squarely on Sarah's shoulders. And not that she ignores the rest of the county or the rest of the state. Senator Vyhovsky and I were both in South Burlington on Dorset Street in March when I experienced maybe one of the scariest moments of my life, and I've been detained by the LAPD. But being on a street that I'm so familiar with across the street from our major high school, and watching men who looked extremely poorly trained and extremely menacing with tiny emblems that said ICE and fully automatic weapons take over our street and terrorize a family while hundreds of people watched in horror and disbelief. That was a moment that shook me to my core, and it's even hard to drive down that street now. And once again, Sarah ended up at the absolute epicenter of trying to ensure we remember our humanity, and that we know our rights, and that we have the freedom to assemble and to dissent and to protest and exercise free speech. Um, and, so often what Sarah does ends up at the center of our politics, even though I trust her and many trust her to be the least political actor we have in the county, just by doing her job well and in a way that's trustworthy and that is fair, as is her middle name, to all, she ends up being treated like a political lightning rod when what she's doing is a model of fairness and justice in the country. I will always show up for Sarah. She shows up for the people who have no one who stand up for them, who share their voices, who think about the future that they could have if it's not cut short by a system that doesn't stand up for them and doesn't believe in them. I will always be proud to stand by Sarah. You know, we can all question each other's judgment at any time we'd like, but no one can question that Sarah is up late at night, there first thing in the morning, reading through, every material that can be read through. For those of you who don't know, I used to be the legal director at Steps to End Domestic Violence, and Sarah was an assistant state's attorney there. And, when when I was working with people who were at their lowest and feeling re-victimized by a system as victims in these cases, Sarah was the warmest, most competent, most passionate person in the room. I've always said that Sarah doesn't stand on the side of plaintiffs or defendants, believed victims or believed criminals. She stands on the side of justice. And that is who we should have in every state's attorney's office and every public, public element of our justice system. But we're very, very fortunate to have that with Sarah. I feel fortunate to know her and fortunate to work with her on statewide criminal justice reform, and fortunate that whatever side of the system we land on, that Sarah is in the position that she's in. So I know I'm turning it back to Senator Vyhovsky to introduce our most esteemed guests, and I will listen. Um, and I'm just really grateful always to support Sarah and welcome Mr. Krasner. It's a privilege to have you here virtually from Pennsylvania.
Yes, so I am really happy to get to introduce Sarah a little bit more. I'm going to keep it short because I already talked a lot about the amazing work that she does, but Sarah is the sitting state's attorney in Chittenden County and has done just incredible work moving our system in Chittenden County to a system of fairness, justice, and compassion that keeps us all safer. And with that, I won't keep us any longer from hearing from Sarah.
Larry was going first. I think if it's okay for Larry to go first, because he does have to leave at 6:40. So I'm sorry if that might be my fault, Tanya. But
No
I do
worries.
think that's
I'm
okay.
pivoting between two different documents and they say different
No,
things. So,
it's
so actually, Larry, go for it.
okay.
Well, thank you all. Let me just say this. I usually get way too much credit, and this is one more example of that. I do want some lasagna, but unfortunately, you're not going to be able to give me that. So we'll keep it moving. I watched that video, which is a great video. It's not the first time I've seen it. And it reminded me of another video that Sarah showed me a few years ago. This was the day before Election Day, and Sarah and I have actually been in office almost the exact same period of time. She's won an election or two, as you know, and won the last one very effectively, not because the establishment embraced her, because they don't embrace us, but because the voters did, which is really, it's really fundamental. And it goes even beyond what we do as chief prosecutors. It goes to democratic notions of having people who are genuine and are for the outsiders. She is. And that's why, despite the establishment's resistance, people were able to see through it. But let me tell you about that second video. So this was maybe the day before Election Day or 2 days before Election Day. Some body-worn camera by police officers. It's recording everything that's going on. There's a call about a supposed drug house on a particular block. Here comes Officer so-and-so who's not supposed to play politics. He shows up and he is there to advise the caller that he won't be doing anything because, that's Sarah George, so you don't prosecute. Now, this is, as they say in French, complete bullshit, but it is also, it is what this officer wanted to do instead of working. Instead of actually doing the job that is required, it was to claim that somehow Sarah doesn't do hers, so he won't do his. And by the way, and this video does cover this, make sure you go and vote for the other candidate. Pretty amazing stuff. That is what we are up against. And understand what that means in areas where a prosecutor's office has a much tinier budget than a police department. Understand what that means when the media is not always with us, when we generally don't have a huge pile of money because we're not exactly bought by real estate developers or whoever else is running your community. It's a big deal, to be Sarah George and be able to win these elections, win them by 20 points when you have all these things against her, which of course is a reason why Sarah needs your money. She doesn't need your money like a slippery traditional politician needs your money, which is they need your money to hire a company to tell voters what to think. Voters already like her. Voters already understand that she is trying to be fair, that she will stand up to scary stuff. They get all of that. But still, they do have to get a little bit of information from the radio, from flyers, from canvassing, from whatever it is that Sarah does to get out the vote. There has to be at least pennies in the jar. I know that in my last election, I was literally outspent 100 to 1 on media, 100 to 1. Well, thank goodness I had the one, because you can't be completely silent. You can't be completely without resources. So trust me, your money is a good investment. You're getting a lot on that investment. You're getting a lot in terms of safety. You're getting a lot in terms of freedom. And you're getting a lot in terms of Sarah's and my new job, which is democracy. Didn't used to be our job, but then a bunch of criminals took over the White House, and it became our job to actually enforce the laws locally when the feds wouldn't enforce them federally, which does bring me to another significant point. I know what high regard you all have for Sarah. I get that. And I know what high regard the voters have, because against all odds, she has been winning big in the past. But what you probably don't know is that there is a big club of progressive prosecutors. And all of us are, at least to some extent, trying to do the right thing. But there's a couple of us a little more slippery than the others. Let me just put it that way, right? Big club, I could probably name 50 of them. Well, there is a subgroup. You might call them the not so slippery club, which is a group of prosecutors who have been very public that they are going to hold federal officials accountable if they commit crimes under state law. Yes, a thing we can do. And yes, an important thing we can do, because the president cannot pardon a state conviction, right? We state prosecutors like Sarah George have a superpower that federal prosecutors don't have. And that is that Donald Trump, who got convicted by a state prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, in the state of New York, Donald Trump, who had 34 felonies, cannot pardon himself, and no president can ever pardon him. Well, the same applies to us. If Sarah George, heaven forbid, should ever prosecute Stephen Miller because he decides to drive drunk through town chasing innocent immigrants for no good reason, she could prosecute him for driving drunk, and he might have to do some time, and Donald Trump cannot let him out, right? Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because Sarah is not only beloved of all of you and beloved of the voters, but we progressive prosecutors have a little club of the ones we really trust, really trust, the ones we really know are for real, the ones who are going to take that risk and endure that threat and are going to stand up. And when Sarah's name came up in this much smaller group, it was absolutely unanimous. How about Sarah George? That was basically a hell yes from the relatively small group of us, because we knew she was completely down to do the right thing, regardless of the consequences, to stick up for the little guy, to uphold the law and Constitution, and to seek justice, which is not easy to do, because it's not actually what most chief prosecutors have done for a long time. I think you all know what they've done. They've filled jails, and they've built their careers stepping on people so they could climb higher. That's what they've actually done. Well, having said all of that, I wish I was in Vermont. I'd vote for her. Might present me with some other technical difficulties, but I wish I was in Vermont. I'd vote for Sarah. I wouldn't do it twice or three times like Republicans try to do. I would just do it once, but I would vote for her. I have seen, individually over a period now of almost 8 years, her courage and her capacity, her intelligence, how much she really cares about what's going on. I completely share her view that the truth is paramount, and that what you focus on in terms of enforcement is violence, and what you focus on in general is prevention and rehabilitation, because it works. Finally, on the national front, let me just say this. There is a vast lie that's been out there for a long time, unchecked by our Democratic Party colleagues, and some of us claim more than one party, but I claim the Democratic Party. And that vast lie is this, that Republicans are good with crime, that they're good with, quote, law and order, unquote, a phrase that really mostly originated with Richard Nixon. What does that tell you about that phrase? Here are the facts. Here is the data. And I know that Senator Vyhovsky, given her social work background, might appreciate this. So if you look at the last 25 years at Republican states versus Democratic states, not so much for the politics, but for the kinds of policies that they pursue. And then you ask the question, which set of policies makes you safer? Where are you going to be safer from being killed? Well, the policies you'll find in the Republican states are basically cut everything that supports basic human needs, cut public education, limit women's rights in a variety of different ways, lock everybody up, hurrah for the death penalty. That's their set of policies, supposedly tough, or for some Freudian reason, hard. That's their set of policies over there, right? And then you look at the Democrats, and there's at least some attention to things like public education, meeting people's basic needs, prevention, some attention to that. Well, it is a fact that for the last 25 years, if you take the entire United States of America, compare all the Republican states to all the Democratic states, your chances of being murdered in a Republican states are way higher than in the Democratic states. It is 125% higher in the Republican states than the Democratic states, and you have been safer in a Democratic state 24 of the last 25 years. Okay? Those are the facts. What is being done by Sarah George is she's saving you a lot of money. She's making you a lot safer. She is building a future that will allow for some of the wasted money on incarceration to go for the things that work much better at making you safer, such as public education, such as treatment for people who have mental health, addiction, et cetera, issues. And finally, what she is doing at a time when it could not be more important is she is defending your rights. She is defending your freedoms, including your right to vote, at a time when we all know what others would like to do. So therefore, I ask you, as another member of a social justice movement that has gotten past the early phases, those early phases being they ignore us, they laugh at us, they fight us, and we're still in the fight phase. The last phase is we win. I would ask all of you to dig deep, do whatever you can, whether it's volunteering, picking up the phone, or going in your pocket, or going to some friends of yours and saying, hey, doesn't always matter, but this one matters. Let's chip in for Sarah George. I would ask you all to do that because Sarah George is the real deal. Oh yeah, I got to introduce you, Sarah. So without further ado, although I must admit that I have to run to another event, I'm hoping I'll be able to Zoom on my phone from the car. So if I fall off, it's not that I'm not trying to be there. I am trying to be there. I'm a victim of the interwebs. But let me just say, without further ado, other than my 10-minute introduction, I give you the great, the wonderful Sarah George.
Thank you so much, DA Krasner. Thank you for your words and for your service. Thank you to Senators Vyhovsky and Hinsdale for being here. Truly, the three of you are three of the electeds in my life I most admire and most respect. So I really appreciate sharing space with all three of you tonight. DA Krasner, if you can still hear us, I think it's important to note that we have a strong Philly contingency in Vermont that I have learned of lately, and several are on this call and are very big fans of yours. So if you want to come to Vermont, you will have a very warm welcome, I assure you. Tonight's event feels especially timely given what we're seeing from our Supreme Court this week. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity to be here tonight, especially when just this morning the Supreme Court told trans kids in much of this country that they don't get to play. Earlier this week, they held that the Immigration and Nationality Act gives DHS the seemingly uncontrolled authority to extend or terminate TPS without any court oversight. But even before these really horrifying decisions, we organized this event because there is a national movement to strip prosecutors of our independence and bend us to political ends. And when that doesn't work, to lie about us and to target us and to threaten us, to scare us either into compliance or into hiding, which means out of politics, out of elected office. And the fear is not just a side effect, it is it's the strategy. I mean, it really is the intent, and it trickles down into our states and into our communities. And the pitch, as DA Krasner indicated, was that it's the only way to be safe, is to roll back diversion, to roll back treatment, to jail more people, to erase queer people, to deport every immigrant, and most importantly, to believe everything they say and to ask fewer questions. And we try in Vermont to distinguish ourselves from what we see around the country happening in this respect. But the reality is that we're not protected from it. It spreads through our social media like a virus. And if you pay close attention, if you see through the sort of taglines or the flowery promises of a safer community, the tough on crime messaging comes through in this community and in this race. They are distorting my record because my record is a problem for them. The accountability court was supported by the governor, but I designed it, I helped implement it, and I've continued it without the governor's resources with great improvement and great success through partnerships with the judiciary and law enforcement and Howard Center. We are actively prioritizing cases involving repeat offenders by having them come to court every single Friday, and are working diligently to connect people directly with housing, with mental health services and substance use services. These efforts have reduced harm in the community while keeping people in our community. And they've proven that true public safety and accountability comes from addressing the root causes of harm, meeting people's basic needs, and truly repairing harm to the victims involved. And that has been my answer to the false choice that they're selling, that I do hold people accountable and get them treatment in the same program. And it works. And I get results without jailing people simply for being poor. I work to house people rather than incarcerate them. I work to connect people with services rather than convictions. And the results show that when we make these decisions that are based on research and data, recidivism goes down and our communities are safer. We have resolved most of our homicide-related cases and gunfire incidents from an alarming increase in both in 2022. We've nearly eliminated our COVID-related backlog. Crime is down, and all crime is down. Burlington and South Burlington are consistently ranked two of the safest cities in the country. I believe this past year, South Burlington was first, and Burlington might have been second. For me, reducing harm is a result. It's not a slogan. And the justice that we believe in here is exactly what folks who don't like the way that we talk about these issues are trying to erase. They prefer, despite the evidence showing that these things work, they either ignore them or want you to ignore them, which tells me that the actual want from their perspective is a community in fear, a community looking for a savior to protect them, rather than a truly safe community coming through community collaboration and shared accountability for everybody's safety. And a prosecutor who takes kind of their cues from a national political mood is not doing the job, and in fact is doing Trump's job for him. When ICE came for Vermont, I stood up for everyday Vermonters against federal aggression, not through a sort of kitschy statement, but in action when it counted. And that's, from my perspective, what independence looks like in practice. Protecting the people a politicized office goes after first, which is minorities always, poor people, people with mental health and substance use issues, queer and trans folks, immigrant families, and TPS holders. Creativity and independence in this office are the protection. And I won't outsource that judgment to whoever is the loudest when I know that what they're saying is not true, is not based on any evidence or data. We cannot roll back. I mean, we're here tonight to talk about my reelection because we cannot roll back in the face of Trump's fear-mongering or my opponents. And that takes a lot of work. Fair, smart, free from fear is my standard. It holds only if this office stays in the hands of somebody who means that, who truly means that. I do not govern out of fear. I do not politic out of fear. And I look at the evidence to determine what is most effective to get people back on their feet. And I work overtime to achieve that result to the best of my ability. I think it's important to note that we are in a Democratic primary, and this race will be decided in a primary. And I think it's more important than ever, given all of the things that DA Krasner just said, to stay true to the Democratic values and push back against Republican values of over-policing, prosecuting, and jailing our way out of complicated issues, and push back against those coming into our Democratic primary. It's not who we are. It's not what we should be supporting. But I do think the choice, because of those things coming into our primary, I think the choice is really clear. I will never ask for an outcome in public safety that is based on fear. I will never ask for someone to be punished simply for the sake of punishment, or held pretrial because they can't afford their freedom. It's not fair, it's not effective, it's not efficient, and it's not fiscally or morally responsible. What often happens in contested races is that incumbents moderate their positions in order to sort of appeal to the middle or even to the right. And I just have no interest in moderating my morals in order to keep this job. That being said, I love this job. And I truly want to keep it. I want to keep serving, but I also need to be able to sleep at night. And I can only do that if I really stay true to my morals and my message. And everybody who votes for me will know exactly who they're voting for. If you believe that people should be held pretrial simply because they can't afford bail, I am not your candidate, and I never will be. If you believe that jail is the answer for nonviolent offenses, I am not your candidate. If you believe that prosecutors should do whatever police ask them to do, or never disagree with them, or never hold them accountable, I am not your candidate. But if you believe that police should be held to the highest standards and held accountable when they fall short of that, or that harm reduction approaches to substance use and mental health issues should be prioritized at every single opportunity in our justice system, or that our justice system should be guided by data, research, and evidence-based policies that actually make our communities safer, then I am your candidate. And we have a collective responsibility to make sure that I not just win this primary on August 11th, but to win big, like we did in 2022, to send another really strong message that we will not give in to these false, harmful, dangerous narratives, and we will not go backward. I'm really, again, grateful for all of you for being here, and for understanding the importance of this race, and for your support over the next 6 weeks leading up to the August 11th election, and over the next 4 years as we continue this work. The work never ends, the fear mongering never ends, and we have an obligation as a community to continue to support this work as time goes on. And that, if that is not financially for you right now, I really would encourage you to sign up to volunteer, make a few phone calls, get a yard sign. We're marching in the Richmond 4th of July parade on Saturday with Emoji Nightmare. If you want to join us and march in the parade, there's a lot of ways, both big and small, that you can show your support. And I would just ask you all to not just do that yourselves, but to ask your friends, ask your book club, ask your, any groups that you're a part of, to be a part of this with us, to be a part of this journey with us and a part of this success on August 11th with us. I think I think that's all I had to say. I really am humbled by the support that I have had in this race so far, and really for the last 9.5 years that I've been in this role. And I'm really looking forward to a really strong message being sent again on August 11th. April. There's 6 weeks from today. So we have a lot to do, but I think we can do it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. And I did just post a bunch of ways to get connected with Sarah's campaign, but I'll also be sending up a follow-up video for anyone who registered for the event. Thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Kesha. Thanks, Larry, if you're still here.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you so much, Sarah, for your bravery and all of the work that you do. I believe that data and evidence should guide criminal justice policy, and we shouldn't be making vibes-based criminal justice policy. And I know that that's not what you do. And it's more important than ever with our rights under attack from the federal government that we have candidates. We have prosecutors and electeds just like Sarah in these positions. Her record is real. The threats are real, and having to pivot a campaign often is a lot more expensive than what we had originally planned for. So the road to August 11th is also really real. Now, this race is going to be decided what we're all able to put behind Sarah, because this isn't just Sarah's fight, it's all of our fight. And so here's the ask. We are raising money to support Sarah's campaign through to the finish line. If you can give at the maximum level, which is $1,940, please give the max. Don't wait. We just have 6 weeks. I also know that that is a lot of money. And if you can't give at that amount, give whatever is right for you, whatever you can. Even $5 helps. Every little bit is going to help. And if you can't donate your money, then please donate your time. It all is going to be really important to making sure that we return Sarah to the Chittenden County State's Attorney's Office. As Bella said, the link is in the chat, and volunteering is important. Sarah will be outdoor knocking on the phones and having to really think differently about how she gets her message out there, given the threats against her safety. Take a lawn sign. Visibility matters. You can reply and the campaign will get you one. And then help us to reach the ballot and the voters. Talk to your neighbors. Post why you support Sarah on social media or Front Porch Forum. Talk to your friends and bring one more person into this fight. That type of relational organizing goes a long way. And make sure people know that there is a primary. I've been out knocking doors for my campaign, and unfortunately, far too many people don't know that there is a primary. And in 2024, a little under 15% of the registered voters actually voted in the primary. And this race is going to be decided in the primary. So it's time to get the information out in the next 6 weeks so we get people to the polls. We get people to support a data-driven, fair, evidence-based criminal justice system like the one that Sarah envisions and fights for every day. She is doing this job the right way, under pressure that most of us are never going to face. The very least we can do for her and for all of us is to make sure that she has what she needs to win. So please give now, sign up tonight, and let's finish strong through the August 11th primary so that we can send the message that Sarah is fighting for, that we will not go back, that justice, evidence, and data matter. Thank you all for being here, and thank you in advance for your support of Sarah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry to be late, everyone. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Larry, who might not be here anymore. I'm here at Vermont Network, and we're in the fight with you. So thank you, Sarah.
Worries, Doug. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Everyone have a good night. Remember to hydrate and rest. It's hot out.
Thanks, Doug.
All right.
Okay, just us.
Just us. Thank you so much, everybody. But Tanya and Kesha, thank you. Thank